All right, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. My name's Austin. Today I want to bring you the top 3 altcoins set to do very, very well in 2020. Bold statement, I know, and I can't see the future. I'm not a financial advisor, but I can say this with so much confidence because I didn't choose these altcoins. You did. You chose every single altcoin on this list today. And hey, a community of 174,000 subscribers can't be wrong. Time will tell. But let's take this opportunity and have an honest look on what differentiates these altcoins and what these altcoins are doing in 2020. Like the video if you appreciate this type of content, and let's jump in. The number 3 coin that you chose, got a ton of votes, is XRP. XRP currently trading at about 19 cents per XRP coin, one of the oldest altcoins in the space, created way back in 2012, specifically created for the banks and for the financial institutions. So while Bitcoin was created to free the average person, you, me, from the banks, from those centralized middlemen, XRP was created to work with the banks, work with the regulators. And while Bitcoin is an open public blockchain, XRP is a private, semi-centralized, permissioned blockchain. Very different beasts. So what's the use case? The purpose of XRP is to be that cryptocurrency that handles worldwide, cross-border transactions. Right now, current archaic systems like SWIFT are slower and more expensive, right? It might take 3 to 5 days, if not weeks, to settle a transaction right now and cost hundreds of dollars in fees. XRP solves this in seconds and at a fraction of a cent. And for perspective, Bitcoin solves this also. But right now, obviously, XRP is faster and cheaper. Now, obviously, we're not going to have time to talk about every single aspect of the project today. So let's just jump into the big question. Are we seeing real-world adoption for XRP in 2020? Because XRP has existed for over 7 years, like I said, one of the oldest dogs in the space. And ODL, on-demand liquidity, formerly XRapid, has been commercially available since 2018. So are we seeing banks use it? Well, Ripple has a ton of partnerships, but let's be clear because you subscribe to this channel for the truth, not the hype. You want the truth. So let's not mistake Ripple partnerships for the actual use of XRP. They're different. Ripple is a software company, and they also have a coin. You investing in that coin doesn't give you stake in Ripple, the software company. Just like when Ripple makes a partnership with a bank, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're using XRP. So let's flush it out which banks are actually using XRP. And yes, I get it. Ripple's master plan is to first get all the banks using their software, and then hopefully banks will choose to use XRP because it's faster and cheaper. Ripple's approach to adoption is twofold. First, get the banks to use their ledger software to send fiat money without necessarily requiring XRP instead of the Swift way. This step is important because it doesn't radically change the way banks do things today. And then their second step is that the banks will choose to use XRP. So in 2020, what's the status? From my research right now, there are no big banks using XRP at scale. For example, Santander announced that they were testing XRP 5 years ago. Since then, we've heard little to nothing since. SBI Holdings, they've sent out encouraging press releases the last 2 years. Again, we have yet to hear them announce publicly that they are using ODL and moving XXX amount of money per month. Bank of America has referenced them in interviews and referenced their distributed ledger technology and their own patents. Barclays, at least the investment arm of Barclays, has made an investment. Remittance startups that are using XRP in remittances to and from the Philippines. It's not nothing, and XRP hodlers do like this. But again, to my knowledge, not a single one of those banks has publicly announced that they're using ODL and moving XXX amount of XRP per month. The reality is that XRP's volume in 2020 mainly consists of traders, escrow in and outs, wallet swaps, and of course MoneyGram's 5 ODL corridors that are active right now. When Ripple bought a piece of MoneyGram last year, I do think this was a net positive for both parties. It brought a little more relevance to MoneyGram, and it did open up a lot of remittance markets to Ripple. And yes, XRP's volume did increase since MoneyGram started moving XRP. So what does this mean, generally speaking, for all of their clients for XRP volume? Well, right now, Ripple's on-demand liquidity, which again is the commercial use of XRP, is recording about 10 to sometimes even $15 million in volume per day. If you're an XRP holder, you like this. By the way, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on this perspective. But honestly, 10 to even 15 million per day is a drop in the bucket compared to the global market. So, does this show how early we are? Or does this show a clear lack of interest? In my opinion, the metric that is going to be a key indicator for XRP's success in the near short term is watching this. Is MoneyGram going to expand past the 5 payment corridors that they initially installed with Ripple's ODL? 5 is good, don't get me wrong, but they have had this partnership for almost a year now, and if XRP truly does save them 10 times the money, is 10 times faster, then it should be a very easy rollout for MoneyGram to expand their corridors in MoneyGram's offices around the globe. And they have a lot. And right now, Ripple's ODL has 5. Either way, let me know what you think down below in the comments. After this video, let's all check the comment section together and let me know what you think about XRP. XRP, historically speaking, has proven to be an oscillator, meaning when Bitcoin pumps, XRP will pump harder, if history is any indication. Moving on, while XRP came in as your number 3 coin to watch out for in 2020, Ethereum makes our list as the number 2 coin set to do very well in 2020. Currently trading at about $180 per ETH per coin. While Bitcoin solved the use case of money, it is the hardest money, Ethereum is attempting to solve the use case of DeFi, or decentralized applications, smart contracts. It's a dApp platform. Just like the internet back in the 90s didn't reach mass adoption until it had apps on top of it for everyday average people to use. Email, browsers, these were applications. Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies since are allowing us to build decentralized applications. And while I'm still skeptical of Ethereum's long-term viability, in the short term, Ethereum is dominating. Last year, they received regulatory clarity from the CFTC declaring Ethereum is a commodity, not a security. Huge for institutional investors who look for that regulatory clarity. I mean, we're watching companies in real time choose to use Ethereum. They're not choosing Tron, they're not choosing EOS, they're choosing Ethereum. Even Santander Bank, issues and settled a $20 million bond on the Ethereum blockchain last year. This is a big go signal, I believe, for other people coming into the space. But what I want to focus on is, as a dApp platform today, in 2020, what are the current statistics? Because obviously, 5 years ago, Ethereum had a huge first mover advantage. The Generation 3 cryptos hadn't even been invented yet. ETH is Generation 2. But 5 years later, what are the numbers? And these are specifically stats for Q1 of 2020. Out of all the daily active users using dApp platforms on a blockchain, Ethereum still remains ahead. On average, Ethereum had over 600,000 daily active users. Tron, close second, 180 daily active users. And then Neo and EOS, Steam, not even close to Ethereum. Also, developers. In Q1 of 2020, Ethereum continues to retain the most developers in the game. And again, I believe the money is going to trend where the developers trend. So ETH did get a ton of votes. It did come in as your number 2 for coins to watch in 2020. Just like XRP, though, does have its problems. First off, there is no fixed supply, meaning there will continue to be an unlimited amount of ETH created until Vitalik proposes otherwise. Also, and you know this, as of now, Ethereum still can't scale. 3 years ago, we were talking about Ethereum needs to scale. 3 years later, we're still talking about it. In 2020, Ethereum should switch to proof of stake, but deadlines keep being pushed back. While the proof of stake Ethereum date was originally set for January 2020, this deadline has been missed, and it isn't clear when Ethereum's proof of stake will launch. Guesses vary from sometime in 2020 to maybe sometime in 2021, or never, obviously, according to hardcore ETH haters. And the last thing is that people assume Ethereum is 100% decentralized based on marketing campaigns, based on rhetoric. Ethereum was pre-mined. When ETH first launched, 12 million Ethereum were created for the developers. 60 million Ethereum were pre-mined for ICO participants to buy. Considering that at the time of writing, 102 million Ethereum were in circulation, that means about 71% of the existing supply was pre-mined during Ethereum's launch. So will Ethereum be that DeFi solution we're hoping for? Time will tell. Either way, like the video if you appreciate this realistic perspective. ETH is number 2. Cardano is the number 1 coin that you chose to watch out for in 2020, although ETH and Cardano were very, very close. Cardano is a Generation 3 dApp platform and Ethereum competitor, and currently trading at about 3.5 cents per ADA coin. Now, Cardano, it's a lot newer than Ethereum or XRP. So honestly, there's a whole lot less points of contact to dissect. Because with XRP and Ethereum, they actually have sort of a working product, so it's easy to nitpick. Cardano is still in its test phase, so it's a different stage. But either way, what differentiates Cardano from other similar altcoins in the space? Well, first off, it's one of the only peer-reviewed and academically accredited projects in the crypto space with over 31 technical papers published to date. Second off, besides scalability, besides sustainability, Cardano is one of the few projects that are specifically focused on interoperability, meaning that they're very aware that there will be multiple blockchains in the future. And the blockchain that makes it, or wants to make it, will have to be interoperable with many blockchains. And Cardano is focusing on that. And thirdly, Cardano is focusing their adoption efforts on less financially secure countries, where the people, who most of them are unbanked, need a self-sovereign solution to become banked, have some financial security. So Cardano is doing a lot of things. What I want to focus on is specifically for 2020, how decentralized is Cardano going to be once they launch Shelly, once they are a dApp platform and people are building on top of them? Because, for example, EOS with 21 block producers or Tron, for example, they're pretty centralized. There's degrees of centralization in everything. Cardano, what I like about them is that they are making decentralization a priority, they say. Cardano launched their incentivized testnet at the very end of last year, a little precursor to their mainnet. How successful, how popular was this? Right from Charles Hoskinson, the man himself.
But the whole point of Cardano is decentralization. And one of the things that we've done is we've invested about 5 years of research into building a class of protocols living in a superset of protocols called proof of stake. And basically the idea is that we want to go from a federated world, this world here, to a dynamic world. So this is static and federated, and we want to go to a dynamic and decentralized world. And that was the point of the incentivized testnet, and that was launched in December of 2019. And so the idea of the ITN was to get data on some parameters. In particular, we were looking at things like how much ADA is staked, and I think we're approximately around 12 billion here, which I think is around 40% of the total supply. And then we were also looking at things like how many stake pools. We were looking at things like network quality. So basically, is the network stable? Is it up? When people here are trying to send transactions, are they posting and validating quickly? Are we making blocks and with the expected block schedule? These types of things. And here's the reality. The ITN was an overwhelming success. Our decentralization target was, instead of having 3 entities, to have 1,000, or as close to 1,000 stake pools as we could get. It's a pretty big difference, 3 to 1,000. And we've seen over 1,000 register, and I think around 300 are regularly participating, making blocks, which is a tremendous start for basically a testnet that has some incentives behind it.
All right. So as far as testnets go, in terms of the amount of people participating in the stake pools in the incentivized testnet, success. Now, developing isn't my immediate background. I'm more of a long-term researcher and hodler. But the fear is with proof of stake, and why, to me, decentralization and proof of stake has been a challenge thus far in the crypto ecosystem, is because the rich tend to get richer. The bigger stake pools receive more of that coin, that stake, and the rich get richer because of it. So the more stake pools we're seeing with Cardano is a positive. The frustrating thing about Cardano is how seemingly little that they've actually accomplished compared to how long they've been around. They say themselves that they're not interested in releasing anything officially until they're sure they can release something without compromising the quality, which is actually refreshing in the crypto community. Now, in comparison, Ethereum is notorious for doing the opposite. They will write hundreds and hundreds of lines of code, realize that the code doesn't work, scrap it, and then start all over again. Cardano, they won't release the code. They just skip all those steps and say they're not going to put anything out until they're sure they can put it out right the first time. Either way, Cardano is a fascinating experiment. I believe if you're involved in Cardano now, you probably are 100% an early adopter, considering how potentially long their timeline could be, but they got a shot. That is the video for today. Hit subscribe. And by the way, if you want to participate in a charity poker tournament with us, details and link down below. Sign up. It'll be fun.